Hello, teachers and staff, admin, anyone at Hunters Creek Middle School. My name is Carly Mendoza. I am the school psychologist assigned here at Hunters Creek Middle. I have provided a training on all things behavior on Friday. So a lot of staff were asking for a recording, or even if you missed it, a recording to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and record and go through everything in case you weren't able to see it or like to just watch it again. So I'm going to cover all things behavior, MTS interventions at the middle school. So the agenda of this presentation, one, I'm going to go over MTSS behavior, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. I know Ms. Godwin did provide you guys a training on MTSS behavior earlier in the year, so I'm just going to go touch over that briefly, and specifically how it relates to and just behavior. Two, I'm going to go over data collection resources. Why is it important? Why do we need data specifically for behavior? Three, ADHD. That is the buzzword right now. So I thought I'd just go over all of the concerns that have a lot to do with either ADHD or are consistent with ADHD, such as impulsivity and attention hyperactivity. And last, I'm going to go over intervention resources. So MTSS behavior criteria. In order for a student to be on MTSS behavior, teacher reports indicate that the student is exhibiting persistent and repeated negative behaviors that are impeding on his or her learning, causing disruptions in the learning environment, and or presenting a danger to self and others. So when we look at MTSS behavior Tier 1, I have provided this graphic of the umbrella. I think that's a great way to see it as an umbrella for MTSS. Under the umbrella, we have PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Support, RTI, Response to Intervention, SEL, Social Emotional Learning, and GT, Group Therapy. All of these have to do with the tiers. When we're looking at PBIS, that's a lot of those hero points, you know, the students and staff being assigned to a continent. It's a lot for everyone that is in the school that is getting it. RTI, that's usually our academics interventions. That's when students are maybe being pulled out by Ms. Godwin or Ms. Cohen for Tier 2 or Tier 3. Social emotional learning, that's that resiliency day that we just recently had. Group therapy is usually maybe if a student is being pulled to do, students being pulled to do maybe social emotional learning in a group, or check-ins as a group. But overall, Tier 1 is provided for all students. It's a class-wide reinforcer system in which is being utilized. So rules and school schedules posted, that's all Tier 1, formal structure routines, classroom procedures, structured transitions. I know you guys just recently reviewed the code of conduct again for students after the break. That's Tier 1 because you're going over expectations school-wide. So now we look at Tier 2. Let's say a student just has no buy-in, maybe for hero points, or they're assigned continent, or they've been receiving that school-wide intervention and they are not having response to it. There's a lack of response to Tier 1 interventions. So what that is when a student will move to Tier 2. It is used to pinpoint target behaviors, and it's implemented as an intervention strategy based on the function of the behavior. Is the student doing it to escape from task? Is it doing it for attention from peers or even the teacher? Is it doing it for tangibles? That's where we start to look at the function. Why are they doing these behaviors? Here is usually when we begin to track and monitor through MTSS. This is when we also have meetings, strategies, and data collection. And usually there should be a Tier 2 meeting with either the classroom teacher or teachers, depending on the behaviors just in one or all classes. The MTSS coach, usually the behavior designee, Ms. Shaw, and other school staff that might have pertinent information on the student that could relate useful information on why the student might be having those behaviors. Maybe the SAFE coordinator, the school social worker, the school psychologist, speech language pathologist. There's a lot of people that could also be part of these meetings. And of course, it is best practice the parent is involved. So the student hopefully has been receiving tier 2 for at least 6 to 8 weeks. That is best practice. And we're seeing that despite this tier 2 intervention, they are not making progress within their behavior. They're still having difficulties in the classroom or in the school setting. So that is when we move them to tier 3. When a student is in tier 3, they have been having a lack of response to tier 1 and tier 2, and it has been decided that they need more individualized and intensive intervention of the replacement behavior. So again, data is collected to monitor growth of intervention. You just want to see how they're responding to the intervention. Is the behavior decreasing? Is it stagnant? Is the intervention making the behavior increase? You want to have that data to support whether the tier 2 and tier 3 intervention is working. So if it is working, the student is successful with the level of intervention. Monitoring should be continued to see if success can be maintained with less intervention. Maybe we can move them down to tier 2, maybe tier 1. That monitoring is able to support it. If they are not showing growth, that is usually when, after they've been receiving tier 2 for 6 to 8 weeks, they've been receiving tier 3 for 6 to 8 weeks. That's when we usually move them either to a BIP or a behavior support plan. A BIP is a behavior intervention plan, and usually this is where it is required for us to get parental consent to conduct a BIP. What a BIP is we're trying to find the function of the behavior. So FBA is usually conducted concurrently. And a behavior intervention plan, once we find the function of the behavior, a behavior intervention plan is created, and staff members that are involved with the student, follow along with it. As you can see here, I've also added the Google Forms. Most of you guys probably already know what that is. That's for if you guys ever need to request for a student to be moved to tier 3 behavior. That is the form that Ms. Godwin has created. Usually when you guys add a student to tier 3 behavior, you mention your concern. And how it usually goes is we either bring the student up in MTSS or we bring them up also in the student service meeting. We kind of collaborate and think of intervention ideas to help you help teachers within the classroom, as well as data collection, and we collaborate to think of what the next steps could be. So one more thing I wanted to share too is I like to use the analogy for MTSS. A lot of the times with staff or teachers, as I think it of as the analogy of, let's say it's cold outside. One student, let's say they're from New York, and it's 50 degrees in Florida. 50 degrees, nothing for them, right? So they're gonna be fine, they're gonna be comfortable, they're used to this. So they're not even gonna have to add a sweater or a jacket. But let's say it's someone from the Caribbean, they're not used to the cold weather. So, they're gonna need some warmth, right? So they're gonna need a sweater. That's tier 2. They need an extra layer of support to help them in their environment. But let's say, that sweater's on, they're still cold. They need extra support again. So then they would layer that jacket over the sweater, right? If you're cold and you put a sweater on and you think you still need to be warm, you wouldn't take off your sweater and put the jacket, right? No, it's layers, right? I put the sweater and then I put on the jacket. Same thing as tier 2 and tier 3. It's layers of support. You're putting them over each other. You can't just go from tier 1 to tier 3. You need all 3 layers of support. All right, so now let's go on to data collection. So why do we have to collect data for behavior in the first place? I know it can sometimes seem like I'm already collecting data for academics. I have to collect data for 504s and IEP. Why is it relevant for a student that has behavioral concerns? One of the reasons being is that data is an essential component of supporting a student's positive behavior. So we need it to track the decrease in challenging behavior and the increase of desired positive behavior. Without this information, it's unclear if the student is making progress of an intervention or working, if it's working or not. So basically, if I don't have data, I cannot see if the student is staying stagnant, if they're improving, if they're decreasing. And, it's just all opinions. I think they're doing better, but if one teacher's saying, oh, no, he's doing worse with an intervention, that data provides us concrete evidence of how the student is responding to the interventions. Another reason why it's important is that It's collected on individual students and it's tied to interventions with MTSS framework. So it's collected even also as a part of a functional behavior assessment. So sometimes when we have to get to that tier 3 and possibly looking into a BIP, we need to use the data to help us figure out the function of the behavior. And again, it's those things that are they trying to escape? Are they doing it for attention? You know, is it for sensory or tangibles? You know, the data helps guide us to find the function. And once we find the function, we can help help figure out what intervention will work best for it. And lastly, data also supports IEP goals, whether it's behavioral or academic. You know, when we have students that are having academic, social, emotional, academic, behavioral concerns in IEP, we need to see if they are meeting those goals. So without data, we have no evidence to support if they're meeting the goals, where we have to change them to increase them to more difficult or even change them to be them less difficult. So that kind of data helps support that. All right, so I have also added the 4 main types of data trackers that you guys will likely be using. A lot of the times there's data trackers and you don't know when to use it. So I thought I'd go over the 4 most common types, how to use it and when to use it. So the most common one that you guys might have seen already, or that you might see, is a frequency chart. This is used to count the number of times a behavior occurs. The best time to use it is when there's a distinct beginning and end. I would not use it when it's having at such a high rate that an accurate count is impossible. So if the student is finger tapping or they're doing something that it's really, really happening a lot of times, you know, it shouldn't be that it's not plausible for you to count how many times you're tapping a pencil or tapping their finger against the desk. You could, but I wouldn't suggest that'll take too much time. You know, we want something, make it something easier for you. Plus, I don't think it would be effective data or useful data. You would also not use frequency when a behavior occurs for extended period of time. So let's say a student is having tantrums or they're having meltdowns. You know, you're able to count how many times they have it. They have it maybe once or twice a week, but what does that tell you? It doesn't give us that much useful information, right? I think knowing how long the tantrums are interfering within the class period is a lot more useful. So the duration is, if the duration is at least, you know, the whole 45 minutes they're in class, you know, we have a one time, but a duration is long, you know, that may be more helpful to use a duration data tracker. So this one is used to record behavior that has distinct beginning and end, or the behavior that occurs at such a high rate, it would be difficult to get an accurate frequency count. So all the times that you wouldn't use it for frequency, I would go ahead and use that for duration. When to use it, and there's a primary concern, is the length of time the student engaged in the behavior, like those tantrums, they're having a meltdown, maybe even if they're going to the bathroom for extended period of time. I know that happens a lot, I've noticed. So you want to count how long it's happening. So you can either use a stopwatch or you can look at the clock. You see what time they started, what time it ended. When to not use it is when the behavior occurs with high frequency or the behavior starts and stops rapidly. So if a student is like constantly getting up, they get out of their seat, they go back, immediately go back and sit, you know, starting and stopping, that's going to take too much time and energy out of your day to collect that. And that's not even still going to be useful data. We already know that they're going out and up and on, down, up and down, up and down. We just want to know some how much of it's affecting it. You know, so I wouldn't use duration for that. All right, the third most common data tracker to use is latency. So this is used when you are interested in how long the student takes to begin performing a particular task. So let's say you give a student a request, you know, hey, Johnny, go ahead and start your schoolwork, please. Hey, you know, start working on your test. You know, there's just talking or doing something else. Then a latency would be the best one. So if the opportunity and the behavior has a clear beginning and end, this is when you should use it. When not to use it is if the opportunities are continuous or if they start and stop rapidly. So let's say, for example, they write their name. but then they go up to talk to a friend, and then they go back and sit down and they write their last name, but then they go and sharpen their pencil. You are going to be starting and stopping way too much. That's going to take too much work. I would not suggest latency for that one, for that. All right, and the last one is ABC analysis. So usually this one is done in conjunction with FBA. Ms. Shaw will likely do this if she's trying to figure out the function of the behavior to see what the antecedent is or the consequences. That's what exactly ABC stands for. The ABC is antecedent. B is the behavior and C is the consequence. So let me give you an example. Let's say the behavior is that the student becomes visibly upset, right? What happened before that to make the student, or what was the antecedent that caused the student to become visibly upset? Maybe the antecedent was the student gave, the teacher gave directives to the teacher to start their work. That was what happened right before. That was the antecedent. Behavior was that the student became visibly upset. Now, C is consequence. Consequence is not the punishment, but consequence is what happens right after the behavior. So the teacher gave the student directions, the student became visibly upset. The consequence is the student flipped the desk. So we're trying to figure out what is causing that student to flip the desk or becoming upset that they're flipping desks, right? It's used to record environmental variables related to the problem behavior. When to use it? Use this method definitely during a functional assessment observation, those FBAs, to identify information regarding the possible function of the behavior. When not to use it, high frequency behavior. So if that student is constantly flipping desk, it will take too much time for you to go and say, oh, I think this one, this one, this one. No, so I would not use it when it's a very high frequent behavior. All right, this slide is all the different data collection tools. A lot of these are from the MTSS headquarters on the Canvas that we have. If you aren't already on the Canvas course for MTSS headquarters, I would definitely suggest joining. There's a lot of great resources on there. A lot that maybe I didn't add to my presentation, but if you want to just look around, I have great academic resources as well. But a lot of these are all the different ones you can check out if you ever get bored or you want to look through. All the ones that we discussed here are the data trackers. It's right at your hands. And I've also added other ones such as maybe an emotional check-in and check-out. I have also added reinforcement surveys. I love reinforcement surveys. Basically what they are is a way to find out what the student will work for. A lot of them are open-ended, so they just answer questions. You can either do it with them, ask them the questions, and they can verbally give your answers, or you can just give them the worksheet and have them write it in, whichever works. I really like for the middle school age to use that forced choice reinforcement survey, because a lot of the times when you ask them like, hey, what will you work for? They'll be like, I don't know, like they won't give you a direct answer. So if you force them to choose two options, you will likely get a reinforcement of what they will like. So for example, one might be like, would you rather earn a candy bar, or would you rather earn lunch with the teacher for one day if they have to pick between two? I also have added a reinforcement survey for in Spanish that you can use for our ELL learners. All right, now we are at ADHD. That is the buzzword, especially in middle school. That is the age range that is most likely, fun facts, to be diagnosed for it. The other day I was telling the teachers when I was giving this presentation that I saw on the news too that there has been a skyrocketed prescription for ADHD. So there have been a lot of consistencies in the Google forms that you guys filled out too that look like ADHD. So I thought I'd just go over all about it. Approximately 11% of children in the US are reported by their parents to have a diagnosis of ADHD at some point in their lifetime. I like to put emphasis on that having a diagnosis. So, not everyone or everywhere can go and get a diagnosis. So who knows what this number really is. And so what that basically means is you likely have at least one child with ADHD in each classroom, at least. So what are some common preconceptions and misconceptions on ADHD? One being they're just lazy. They need to try harder. Kids and adults who have it are trying often as hard as they can to pay attention. Behavior may look like laziness or lack of motivation, but it stems from real difficulty in functioning. A lot of the times they're giving all of their energy, but they have a deficit in functioning with paying attention. So it can look like that, but really maybe they are really trying their hardest. Another one is that medication cures ADHD. Medication does help with a lot of the symptoms that are consistent with ADHD as focus, hyperactivity, and attention. But there has been research that has shown that executive functioning tends to be less responsive to medication compared to higher success rates of those other, symptoms of ADHD. So what is executive functioning? I am going to go all into that and why that is important to know, because a lot of the times when I am in meetings with parents, they're saying, why are my kids taking medication? Why are they still having difficulties with their ADHD? And I like to explain to them, well, mom, dad, both ADHD is not really that responsive. ADHD medication is not really that responsive to executive functioning. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into executive functioning, but just remember to keep that in the back of your head. My favorite one to say is that people with ADHD can't focus. This is not true at all, because if you know someone that has ADHD, you know that if they are doing a preferred task, they will become hyper-focused. That is all they want to do. They will not hear you. They will not pay attention to anything. All their attention is hyper-focused on that preferred task. So they can focus, often sometimes too much. But the thing is that it's not that they're unfocused, it's that they're multi-focused. They are looking at everything because they are interested in everything. They want to look at that, they want to look at that. And especially if they're in somewhere that is overstimulating, there's so much to look at, they want to take it all in. So it's not that they're unfocused, they're trying to multi-focus, but they have the inability to regulate their attention on what needs to be focused. The last one is that children will outgrow ADHD. ADHD is a developmental disorder. What that means is that they are born with it. They didn't do anything after they were born to get it. It's something that you were born with. So though a lot of the times symptoms can lessen or disappear as they get older, this is likely often because they have learned to cope with it, either with, name tags or lists or sticky notes. They have just learned to manage it, that it's not that much of an impact, or at least it looks like that's not not much of an impact, because a lot of the times they have learned to manage it so much that they are using so much of their energy to manage it that by the end of the day, their energy is depleted. And that's why a lot of the times parents will say, my kid, like, they're so good in school, they're able to do everything, and at the end of the day, they are yelling at me, they are angry. That's because they're using all their energy to mask it, to lessen or disappear what it looks like. Or a lot of the times, it's maybe that it looks like they've outgrown it, but really maybe they have been misdiagnosed it. All right. So now I'm going to go all into executive functioning. I have a really short video to share that I think she might do a better job of explaining it. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. I think she did a great job at explaining it. Oops. Uh, But yeah, executive, why is it? Give me one sec, user error. There we go. So as she shared, executive functioning has a lot to do with that self-regulation skill, using the mental process to enable us to plan, focus attention, remember, and juggle multiple tasks. My screen has been weird again. So I like to use the example to help understand executive functioning as, let's say you tell a kid, all right, go downstairs, get a plate, open up the fridge, get the bread, if you put your bread in the fridge, get the bread, get the peanut butter, get the jelly, get a knife, put the peanut butter on one side of the bread, put the jelly on the other side, make a sandwich, come back upstairs and bring it to me. That's a lot of steps, a lot to remember for ADHD kiddos. So what's likely is going to happen, they're going to go downstairs, they see the dog, they're going to go pet it, then they're like, oh, I need to walk, I'm going to go walk the dog, then I'm going to go open up the fridge, take out the bread, to make a toast, and then take another slice of bread, and then, you know, they're going all over that, juggling that multiple task, and starting it from the beginning and end is difficult, and that is all executive functioning. I like to talk about executive functioning, especially if you've been in a meeting with me, I'm always probably mentioning it because it doesn't only affect ADHD kiddos. You know, there's a lot of research that shows that people with dementia, people with depression, schizophrenia, autism, especially learning disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, they all have deficits in executive function. So it affects a lot of people. So how can we improve executive function? One being stop and refuel. Having the ability to stop, regulate, take in everything really, really helps. I always like to share too that the two main areas that are impacted for ADHD kiddos is their processing speed and their working memory. So being able to stop and regulate and refuel helps them to kind of their processing speed, process it, and remember. Hands-on learning. All kiddos work well with this, right? A lot of these skills, and you're going to see too, all kiddos that can help with that breaks for them too. But hands-on learning is going to help them retain information and absorb information in other ways than just either visually or, you know, through hearing. Having that hands-on helps encode it by using manipulatives. So if you can, hands-on learning works great for helping that. Make time a physical, measurable thing. When I am testing students' potential concerns, I am making sure I'm taking breaks, and I'm also making sure that when I'm taking breaks, I'm making sure that they see the time of how long the break is. I will usually put on my phone 5 minutes, and they will see the countdown. This helps them to kind of regulate and understand that time is going down, so that they can go back to the task that they need to do. When I do that, it works well. They're able to go back to getting back to work. Now, one thing I want to say, though, is to be careful on how you use this, because if it's like something like a test and you're putting the timer up, what are they going to focus on? They're going to focus on the time. So that's going to stress them out more, right? If it's something, a preferred task, I would say, yeah, put a time for how long they have a break. If it's something that you think that might make them anxious because they're like, oh my God, my time is going down, all they're focusing on is the time, I would not use that. And instead, I would just verbally tell them how long they have. And I usually do that in 3. So I would say either like, okay, you have 10 minutes. Okay, you have 5 minutes. Okay, you have 1 minute, so that they are aware of that it's going down. And at 1 minute, okay, I need to start wrapping it up. Offer rewards. I love to always say it's better to reinforce desired behavior than to punish undesired behavior. You want to get that buy-in from kids, right? If a kid feels that they're always being yelled at, always being punished, you're not going to get buy-in. They're just going to think they already hate me. Why should I do my assignments? Why should I do my work? I hate this class. I hate the school. You know, we don't want that. We want that buy-in. We want them to feel like they are doing something right. They are doing something good. So rewards are a great way of doing that. Now, You do not have to go out and spend money. You're going to see that I offered a lot of resources for rewards that are completely free. There's always something that a kid will work for. If you can't find the something that they will work for, you didn't find the right thing. There is always something that, even adults, there is always something that someone will work for. So if you can just find that for that kiddo, it will work wonders. And lastly, I think is the most important is showing compassion, knowing now maybe, or maybe you already knew. I mean, a lot of staff told me that they, executive functioning, they heard about it, they know better, but maybe they knew already, but just knowing that executive functioning is a deficit. It's literally a part of your brain that is not fully developed. Just showing compassion and understanding and, willing to cooperate that, they're children, they're not perfect, they're still trying, can just work wonders. So here are some recommendations in the classroom for ADHD kiddos. I know it says ADHD, but these work well for all kids, all shapes and sizes. These can just be a tier 1 thing that you provided for all kids, but they especially work well for ADHD. Sticking to a routine whenever possible. This is really helpful because if you know they have executive functioning deficits, then having a routine where they know this is always how things go, they are able to kind of encode with that working memory, remember that this is the routine. So always having maybe, okay, every morning you guys take out your planners, you start your morning work, and then a few minutes in we take attendance, and it's just having routines every day will help with that. Give instructions slowly. Remember, they have deficits in processing and they have a deficit in working memory. So when you're giving things fast, they did not take that in. Research has shown that even adults, when you learn something in 2 weeks, you will only remember that you will remember 20% of that. So now think of it as someone that has deficits in memory. They're going to have difficulties remembering instructions. So just saying it slowly, maybe have them repeat it back to you, will really help. Offer choices. Children love autonomy. When you're giving them 2 options compared to just saying, do this, that's not maybe going to get some buy-in. But if you offer 2 choices and you give them autonomy to choose, I say, I get to pick. I'm picking this one, that is likely to get them more to cooperate. I do this with my nieces all the time. Sometimes I'll go, hey, do you want to take a shower tonight or do you want to take a shower tomorrow morning? If I say you want to take a shower right now, they're going to be, or you want to take a shower tomorrow morning? But I give them the choice and I say which one, they will always give me an answer and they will usually do it. At least I've had 100% success rate. The next one is increase active class participation. Having them participate, again, helps with encoding it into that memory. They're able to take it in because they're actually a part of it versus just listening to it. We want to help encoding their memory. Discourage punishment. As I said, it's better to reinforce desired behavior than to punish undesired behavior. Punishment has been it's well researched, well known that punishment is not effective. And if it is very short lasting. If we want something to work long term, research has shown reinforcement is the way to go. Punishment is usually just reinforcing on the punisher. So please, if you can, I know it's sometimes hard, but please discourage punishment. We want that buy-in. We want them to feel like they're doing something good, right? Consider changing how you transition in the classroom. So like I said, maybe doing that 10-minute reminder, 5-minute reminder, 1-minute reminder, or putting an attention grabber where you ring a bell, they're hearing the auditory, that is a routine that they know. Or like when I taught, I would play a song and they would know that we are transitioning to the next assignment. And last, provide a 5-minute warning. Those warnings really help. Under there, I have an executive function toolkit. It's really fun to look through. If you have any kiddos, nephews, nieces, and you want to look more into auxiliary executive functioning and dive into that and how to use it, maybe even at home, I suggest looking at that. All right, so now we are at the last part, interventions. How do we implement things to help those tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors? So thank you to all the teachers that filled out that Google form sheet I created. From what I have gathered, these are the most common behaviors that is being noticed within the school. So I went ahead and let's just run it through. on what the behavior is, what kind of data collection you can do, and what kind of interventions that you can do for them. So a common one is completing work. A lot of teachers said that they are not completing work. Now, I would suggest too to look into, is it a will issue or is it a skill? Will or skill? Is it because they do not want to, or is it that they do not have the skills to do that work? That's something to consider. But overall, when I want to progress monitor and use data collection, I would suggest a latency or a frequency chart. You want to gather data regarding how long it takes a student to begin performing a desired task or behavior, or even count the number of times a behavior occurs of when behavior is or isn't isn't being completed. So now when we look at off task, it's a lot of the times it was a lot of off task behaviors being noticed, but sometimes they're disruptive or non-disruptive. Both of the data collections work for these, so that's why I kind of bracketed them together. But again, I would suggest a frequency chart, count the number of times a behavior occurs or when work is or isn't being completed, and from based on how or work is or isn't being completed based on how being disruptive. So maybe count how many times they're being disruptive as well. Another one, I didn't go over this one. The reason why is it may be difficult for you to collect, but this one is basically time sampling in which every 10 minutes you look at them and see what they're doing. I really like to go into the classrooms and do this for teachers. If you ever would like that, it's just because they're off task and you want to know what they're doing. I can do that, and what's different is that I'm looking at them every 30 seconds compared to 10 minutes. So there's a lot more data points I can provide just to see every 30 seconds, see what they're doing. Okay, well, 40% of the time they were talking to a peer, 20% of the time they were doodling. That gives you a lot of good information. If you guys would ever like me to go ahead and do that in your classroom, you guys can go ahead and request it. I do that a lot of times at my other school. If I can, I will try to. And the last one, a lot of teachers were saying that students are unmotivated. So again, I would say, look at think first, is a will or a skill? It seemed from what teachers were saying, from the feedback, they have the skill, they just do not care, they just not want to. So if that is the case, then I would suggest these progress monitorings of where we're daily positive behavior tracking. This one is really easy, really quick for you guys. You can do it while they're coming inside the classroom. I would say, hey, on a scale of 1 today, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm feeling a 6. There's your data point. Or you can even do it for the whole class and then just write down what that student says. So a really good, fun attention getter that you can do that is like, if you know those pictures where they have a bunch of different animals making different faces. Like for example, if it's bunnies and one bunny is sleepy and one bunny is angry and one bunny is happy, and there's a bunch of different options of the bunny. You just ask the class, hey, which one are you feeling today? And the student that you're collecting data for is the happy bunny. There you go. There's your data point. And then also that reinforcer survey, find out what they're working for. Every student will work for something, so maybe that can help motivate them. And then I provided interventions, and they kind of go for any of them because really intervention depends on the function of the behavior. Check in and check out might work for one student to complete their work, but another student might. So I didn't want to put it in kind of a narrow way. I just thought maybe these will work for all of these. So check in, check outs work great for all of these. Having structured breaks, a calm down corner. I know it sometimes feels like calm down corners can be really elementary-ish, but there is a lot of research that has shown that middle schoolers do benefit, and there is a decrease in behavior in the research for middle schoolers. So it's still effective. They still like them. A token economy system, if they maybe the hero points, if they don't like hero points, you can always create your own token economy. It can be super simple, like little raffle tickets, or one teacher was sharing to me that she uses stickers as a token economy because they like to put on their hydro flasks. When I taught, I made Mendoza bucks, and I just made a quick a dollar bill with my face on it, and they loved it. They went crazy because they thought it was hilarious. My face was on the dollar bill, so they wanted to earn all of them. So that was one way, but you don't necessarily have to do that. It's just a suggestion if you're willing to. And then positive reinforcement. I am always going to advocate for positive reinforcement. So If you can, do it immediately. If that, for example, let's say a student is always off task, they're never doing the work, you barely catch them, the one time you do, give that immediate recognition. Oh my goodness, good job, good job, good job. You know, that kind of rewires their brain, like, oh, I'm getting acknowledged for something good. Maybe I'll keep doing it, and then keep giving that positive reinforcement. So to maybe help with it. Last is some intervention resources I have here. Here I have a calm down tools for older kids that work well for middle and high schoolers, some classroom accommodations that help with ADHD, some free or inexpensive reward ideas for middle school students. I do not want you guys to have to spend your money. Incentive punch cards. Middle schoolers really like this. Is kind of like a token board, but made a little bit older, you know, those work good for me. I keep going to the same boba place just because I can get that punch. So you can always do that in the classroom. Some mindful breathing exercises. You could do this in the morning with the kiddos to kind of just set the day, or even put the exercises in the calm down corner. Some interventions based on the function. If you know the function is that the student is trying to escape from schoolwork, that's a great intervention. OCPS also has a behavior intervention guide, but I really want to show you guys before I finish the PBIS World website. This is if there's any behaviors I wasn't able to discuss, or there's a behavior that may come up later, such as, for example, let's say a student is always out of their seat. This website is awesome because, let's say, yep, that sounds like them. They frequently get asked for help. They're, you know, always trying to use the bathroom. It will provide you interventions that you can do. So let's say, oh, I've tried these, you know, for a while, take me to tier 2. It will also give you tier 2 interventions, and you can use a lot of these for also tier 3. So amazing website to use. So that is everything, all things behavior. I hope this was really helpful. I hope you guys learned a lot. If you want to share anything you learned or anything, you know, a lot of staff have come up and be like, oh, this was so true because of this, or you want to ask me questions. My email is right there. I am on campus usually on Tuesdays and Fridays if you ever want to try to catch me. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I also have my extension there. And also you have wonderful behavioral designee, Ms. Shaw. So please also feel free to reach out to her if you think a student may need to be added to behavioral interventions, or if you ever just want to pick her brain as well. But that's everything. I hope whoever's watching this has a wonderful evening.